Coming up on Market to Market, the worst drought in half a century tightens its grip on the grain belt. Policymakers ponder their response to rapidly deteriorating crop conditions. And growers contemplate the outlook for irrigated crops after Nebraska officials turn off the water. Those stories and market analysis with Sue Martin next.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by Pioneer Hybrid, which supports efforts to help families pass their farms into the hands of the next generation. Pioneer, science with service, delivering success.
This is the Friday, July 20 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. I'm honored to follow in my father's footsteps and Chet Randolph's before him as the host of Market to Market. It's a volatile time in agriculture right now, so let's get started. The big story in rural America these days, of course, is Mother Nature, and a report released this week revealed more of the United States is sweltering through drought than at any time in the past 50 years. Nearly two-thirds of the continental U.S. is in moderate to extreme drought. That's the most since December of 1956. This year, 80% of the nation is abnormally dry, and last month was the 14th warmest and 10th driest June on records dating back to 1895. While pasture and rangeland has deteriorated at an alarming rate, America's row crops have been especially hard hit. We begin our drought roundup this week in the Eastern Corn Belt. Indiana isn't immune from the drought of 2012. In fact, the nation's fifth largest corn-producing state may be in the worst condition of all. According to the USDA, 92% of the crop is rated in fair to very poor condition. One of the three pockets considered worst in the state is in Allen County near Fort Wayne, where the corn is stressed if it is even alive.
This is the big fear around the state now where drought stress is really severe, is that even with rain on a field like this, pollen shed is so far advanced now out in this little area of the field that a good soaking rain tonight would have minimal effect, unfortunately, because so much of the damage has already been done.
We're in the southern part of Gibson County in southwest Indiana. So what you're seeing here is kind of the experience of the dry weather that we've had from starting this spring and all the way through here mid-July, which there's just been very little rainfall. I've lived through 1983 and 1988. This year is a lot drier. And one, it's a lot drier, and two, the dryness started a lot earlier in the season than it did in the other 2 years. 50% of our normal yield is going to be the high water mark this year, and on down to almost just a zero.
More than half of Indiana's 92 counties are now eligible for federal disaster aid. Rain did fall on some portions of the Hoosier State late this week, but for most producers, it's too little, too late. Soybeans aren't in much better shape. The USDA rates 89% of the Indiana crop as fair to very poor, and long-term relief is absent from the forecast.
Unfortunately, it looks like the dome of high pressure that has been dominating the continental United States will continue to park itself over the plains and parts of the Midwest for at least the next 2 weeks. More than likely, this will persist in some manner or another through the remainder of the 2012 crop season.
Illinois is also sweltering amid the arid conditions. 89% of the corn is in the fair to very poor category. Some producers have already mowed down their fields, leaving only a sample behind for insurance purposes. While a record harvest was predicted, the reality of a lost crop is sinking in.
It's disheartening. The expenses to put a crop out nowadays is so high that the idea of averaging a few years together to cover a year like this is just not feasible.
Further west in Iowa, the damage is less obvious. Generally, the crop looks good from the road, but when you get deeper into the field, the impact becomes clear. Planting high populations of corn, Wayne Humphreys recorded 258 bushels per acre 4 years ago in this southeastern Iowa cornfield, but this season, things are different.
An acre of those at 30,000 plants will yield 65, 70 bushels an acre, and that is right in the same row, right in the same variety, planted within a split second of each other. So I think it's going to be very hard to estimate ahead of time to ascertain what to expect from this row of corn, from this field of corn.
So far, only 10 of the top corn-producing states' 99 counties have been declared disaster areas.
As a state, are working very closely with
Iowa Governor Terry Branstad has been working on an emergency drought plan since February and has asked the Agriculture Department for assistance.
I've already sent a letter to Secretary Vilsack expressing my interest in seeing swift action in a secretary's designation on drought for the counties that are affected here in eastern Iowa. And every day that goes by with temperatures like we have today, nearing 100 degrees, and without additional rain, the crop continues, both corn and soybeans continue to deteriorate.
As the drought intensified in some parts of the Hawkeye State this week, Branstad held an open forum for farmers.
Just plain common sense tells us that this is going to take a year or more to turn this thing around. I predict that we will lose independent, family-owned, probably younger producers. I have personally received several phone calls already from individual producers that are asking, "What can I do?"
Despite reductions, this year's corn crop is still predicted to be the third largest on record. Nevertheless, many are worried about the ripple effect fewer bushels will have on the rural economy.
My fear is that if the farmer's not going to order from the dealer's not going to order from his supplier, and there's a possibility of a shortage next spring. I did talk to my equipment dealer yesterday, and he mentioned that he's had 3 people come in and say they didn't want the pieces of equipment that they were supposed to buy. I think this is probably going to continue. Everybody wants to wait and see. You know, we got a crop, we get rain, it'll all make a difference.
Mark Twain is often quoted as saying, "Everybody complains about the weather, but no one really does anything about it." But that's not really the case, especially in the western Corn Belt. In Nebraska, for example, farmers take a much more proactive approach by irrigating their crops with life-giving moisture from local waterways and the massive Ogallala Aquifer. Last week, however, state officials ordered more than 1,000 irrigators to stop pumping from rivers and streams until conditions improve. But that hasn't stopped all the irrigators. Since more than 90% of Nebraska's irrigation systems draw from wells and not surface waters, the ban's impact on yields may not be severe. Market to Market examined conditions in the Cornhusker State this week, and as Andrew Bott discovered, where growers are irrigating, crops are in pretty good shape.
Peer through many Nebraska farm fields this summer, and the results may surprise you. It appears this plains region in the Midwest may have been spared from drought conditions. Timely rains have boosted the endless acres of corn and soybeans. Timely because every 92 to 96 hours, many of the state's pivot systems make a full pass on each field of irrigated crops. Few farmers nationwide have the moisture control provided by 100-foot-long professional sprinkler systems, and few years are as risky as 2012.
I don't know that we've been drier. We've had years 2002, 95, 88 have been dry years, but probably not to the extent that this one has been with the heat, combined with the heat, the dry, and the wind that we've had along with it.
The blast furnace, formerly known as the U.S. Corn Belt, has left growers from Kansas to Ohio helpless to defend their crops. But some Nebraska farmers can dip into a precious oasis, the region's vast Ogallala Aquifer. Daryl Honeycutt uses mostly pivot irrigation, but a few fields are still equipped with older technology, gravity irrigation, as the water runs from one side of the field down to the other.
This is just pollinating, or just finishing up pollinating. So you can see it's pretty well pollinated every kernel. There's a few blanks in there, which could be related to the heat.
Pivot systems are the mainstay in central Nebraska, and the Honeycutt family fields are a perfect example of how quickly the Cornhusker State can become fields of feast or famine.
It would be classified as a nubbin with a few kernels, but with lack of rainfall that will not develop.
This is a pivot corner, a small but thirsty section untouched by the aquifer's reach, and a clear contrast of what the entire state of Nebraska would look like without heavy use of pump irrigation.
Within a few feet, we would go from zero yield to a significant yield. At least 180 to 200 bushel corn within a few feet.
Nowhere are those concerns more researched than a short drive away to Lincoln and the National Drought Mitigation Center, where climatologists pour over 90 sets of data to develop the weekly drought monitor.
We're seeing impacts that maybe we saw with a multi-season, multi-year drought. So maybe it doesn't take a drought that's the worst severity to cause impacts. I think we're seeing droughts now that are causing impacts comparable to what we saw that took years to develop, or certainly months or seasons.
Tens of thousands of real-time data sensors, from stream levels to moisture levels to county-by-county rainfall, feeds into the drought monitor.
This is a state of Massachusetts and Delaware and Rhode Island all in one in some of these climate divisions, literally, for spatial coverage.
Since its inception at the University of Nebraska in 1999, the center has become the premier national resource for drought measurement. And for growers, the data are troubling.
I think you've got to right now be fortunate enough to be under some sort of a hit and miss thunderstorm that hits your farm, but it isn't going to be sort of this widespread, everyone sharing in the rain type of thing anytime soon. And our concerns will shift more from just the corn, which are taking a hit now, to sort of what happens to the soybean crop as this extends into August.
A dry winter may have set the stage for the 2012 drought, but the past 60 days have brought the brunt of intensity. From mid-May to mid-July, the Corn Belt has slowly but surely dried of nearly all its moisture.
So maybe this isn't as long-lived a drought as we've seen, but drought's all about timing, instead of, say, real estate and location.
And the economic costs are just beginning.
Everybody across the nation was wondering why in the heck is this part of the country doing so well? Well, it was doing so well, a lot to do with agriculture.
Each month, Creighton economist Ernie Goss surveys bankers across the Midwest and publishes the Rural Main Street Index. His latest report revealed steep declines in key sectors.
And even those that have crop insurance, there's no crop insurance for the ag equipment sales person, their company, and our ag equipment sales index dropped to recessionary levels. In other words, we hadn't recorded an index for ag equipment sales this low since early 2009. That was before, of course, the recession ended for the U.S. economy.
Back in the fields, the honeycuts, like many Nebraskans, are running their pivot systems non-stop this summer in an effort to stave off dry conditions. Daryl's son, Zach, monitors each field's moisture data in real time on his iPad.
Here we have where it's graphing the soil moisture content. These little spikes you see, that's where we've either had a rain event, which obviously hasn't been the case this year, or an irrigation.
In normal years, these tools would show growers when to turn off irrigation, but there's no need for that in a drought. Near Trumbull, Nebraska, Doug Sadoff has farmed with pivot irrigation since the mid-1990s and is running his diesel-powered pivots nearly 24 hours a day.
We're used to a hot, dry summer, but, just the 100 degrees for, 10 days or whatever, and we got 10 more days, probably the high 90s here, so it's tough on the crops, but, we got to keep the irrigation going, and it's a struggle, but we're getting there.
He also uses a newer moisture distribution technology on a small section of his farm, drip irrigation. Small lines are laid 16 inches below the topsoil prior to planting. This professional soaker hose slowly adds water to the entire field and mitigates most evaporation concerns. While the process uses less water, the technology and installation doesn't come cheap. Other Nebraska irrigators have less control than Sadoff or Honeycutt. Many growers in south central Nebraska are strictly allocated a set amount of water each growing season, and some were told this week to turn off the spigots because nearby streams were running dry. It's a lesson not lost on the farmers of the Ogallala Aquifer.
I know someday it'll be our region. We're not allocated right now how much water we can pump, but I know that day is coming, and we need to be prepared for it. We need to start now before it happens.
In the meantime, growers like Sadoff and Honeycutt hope $8 or higher corn will offset constant pivot irrigation input costs. 2012, ironically, could be a blessing of sorts for growers toiling away in the Nebraska plains, if the economics of national drought and localized irrigation pencil out.
Those farmers, those ag producers that have irrigated crops in those areas that have had moisture are doing real well. In other words, if you got a good crop, well, of course, prices are at very good levels. So those farmers are doing real well.
For Market to Market, I'm Andrew Bott.
Next, the Market to Market report.
Drought-reduced production pushed corn prices into record territory this week, prompting some discussion on the impact of renewable fuel mandates. For the week, September wheat gained 96 cents, while the nearby corn contract broke through the $8 barrier with a gain of 84 cents. The drought's impact on soybean prospects was readily apparent as the August contract exceeded $17 per bushel with an impressive weekly move of $1.63, while the nearby meal contract advanced by nearly $70 per ton. In the softs, cotton traded sideways this week as the December contract posted a gain of 28 cents. In the dairy market, August Class 3 milk futures lost 23 cents, but the deferred contract rose twice that amount. In livestock, August cattle gained 75 cents, nearby feeders were off nearly $3, and the August lean hog contract moved 3.30 higher. In the financials, the euro lost 83 basis points against the dollar. Crude oil declined more than $4 per barrel. COMEX gold fell nearly $10 per ounce, and the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index gained nearly 30 points to close at 650 even. Here now to lend us her insight on these and other trends is one of our regular market analysts, Sue Martin. Sue, welcome back.
Thank you, Mike.
It's been a big week all the way around. Obviously, weather is playing a big part. Over in Europe, are any of the things going on over there having an effect on our markets here, in your opinion?
Well, I think they are on the equity markets. Today Spain said that they felt that the recession for them was going to last on into next year. And so that, of course, sent the dollar running, bonds higher, and I think bonds are trading now around 151, 152, and they might get to 162 before they're going to find tough times, and or turn around to where maybe we start to see a lift in interest rates. But the dollar being higher, one would think that that plays havoc with our grain prices going higher, but right now it's an emotional thing, and we're looking at supply rather than demand. The equity markets, like the stock markets, they all fell around the world on Friday, and so consequently it has an effect more there, maybe even in the energies and possibly even into like gold and silver, but not so much on these agricultural markets. They're kind of dealing with solely weather, pretty much.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Where do you see wheat going?
Well, I think the wheat market is, it was not that long ago that everybody kept saying, oh, we have a glut of wheat in the world. But that's changing, and you go from gluts to tight supplies. And the problem with wheat is that we look at India, who does raise a fair amount of wheat and exports, and their monsoonal rains since April 1, first off, they were late in coming, and not only late in coming, but they were like less than what they really should be. So while we had some pretty decent rains out of them in the first week or two of July, overall, they've been really lackluster on about 80% of their crop areas, especially the groundnut areas, and of course, the soy areas. In fact, it's affecting soy areas by maybe 5% of their planted area. In other words, their planted area will be less, it's estimated, 5% than what they normally would have planted.
Okay.
That's a concern. And then you look at Australia, who El Nino tends to affect and give them drought. And of course, they're seeing a little bit dryness yet in their wheat areas. And so that's a real big concern because Australia puts a lot of wheat into the world market. And you have the U.S., of course, started off looking like we were going to have an awesome crop, and we ended up with not as great of a crop, but it's very good quality, so consequently it's not feed wheat very much. It's more wheat that'll go into the flour mills, that type of thing.
Sure.
So the wheat market looks to me like it's going higher. I think we'll see $10 wheat.
Okay.
I think, and maybe even higher, but I think that the wheat market is in good hands. Breaks will be well supported as we go into October at least, and maybe late October. The one thing about wheat is everybody thinks, oh, they can feed wheat at the expense of corn, but that may not happen because wheat prices are running higher than corn.
All right. Well, let's move into corn. It's been a busy week there as well. How high is corn going to go?
Well, I look at the corn market and, we still have, for now what damage is done's done. And we got to where we are, which is right against the, right under the $8 level for Dees corn. We tested our all-time high today and within a heartbeat. And the September contract for any lead contract now is making new all-time highs, got up around $8.24. And I think that what we're looking at is a market here that is going to still push higher. We can have some breaks here, but this feels like a market that's got some more mileage yet to go. We haven't done enough demand destruction yet. We will when it's all said and done. We got to these price levels because of Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, those crops, and a little bit of slippage on Iowa's and maybe a hair slippage on Minnesota. They're the garden spot still. And Nebraska, of course, is just rated a little over Iowa. But this next Monday, we're going to see that change dramatically. Nebraska is going to show marked deterioration, and so is Iowa again. And I think our deterioration in Iowa is going to be bigger than it was last week. And of course, we fell about 11% on corn and something close to that on beans. I think you're going to be somewhere around 13, maybe 16% on those crops. That said, if this weather persists through the month of August and we see further deterioration in Iowa's crop, we're now decimating a major chunk of good producing states that are trying to make up for the other good producing states on the east of the river, and that's a big concern. I think corn can go to $8.52. That's been a target for a long time.
Okay.
But a lot of analysts have gotten too sexy about that. And so therefore, I've noticed that we've done wave fours in many markets, and be it whether it's on the upside or the downside, it seems like we're exceeding them a little bit. So the next target I have beyond that is 9.26. I would not underestimate that we put a 9 in front of corn. If we don't this year, I would be thinking it's a pretty good bet for next year.
All right. You mentioned something briefly there. You mentioned demand destruction on corn, and I know we're seeing beans going up, up, up. Is demand destruction a concern there as soybean prices rise?
Absolutely. The one thing we have to remember is if we were to slow down ethanol production, which we're seeing the slowest or lowest, I should say, production in 2 years. And so as we slow down production, of course, it means less DDGs, means you've got to put some demand back towards corn, but also soy meal. And of course, China, huge livestock herd, a huge hog industry, and trying to grow, looking at 640 million hogs or whatever. I mean, it's way big. And of course, I don't know as if I believe that their crop is the wherewithal. They'll tell you it is, but I don't believe it. And in the meantime, they're going to need protein. And their crushers are not crushing beans very aggressively, so they may end up turning to soy meal to buy the meal to feed their livestock. If we have a real problem with this bean crop, which I think we're going to, then I visualize that they're going to come in and start buying the hogs, which I'm kind of circling in a lot of different markets, but I could visualize them coming in and buying the whole carcasses, and we'll do the feeding for them and send the meat over. But at the present time, this bean market is the one, if you look east of the Mississippi, they got crops in 2 to 3 weeks early. Okay, so July was their August. But west of the Mississippi, we're pretty much looking at August as August. And if we continue on, and it sort of looks like we could, this weather is really taking a toll. The beans are short, the blooms are falling off. I'm hearing of even in gardens where they've watered that blooms aren't even on the bush beans, the edible beans. And out in Nebraska, talking to the Nebraska climatologist, Al Dutcher, he even told me about how they've had problems out there as well, finding that there aren't blooms on beans, even with irrigation. Yeah. That's a big shock. And so I think we're looking at a crop that's going higher. I think that we know that the news media is a hold of it, Haven't seen it on the front cover of Wall Street Journal yet, but they're aware of it. But it may be one of these years where they stay aware of it and the market just keeps chugging, and each month gets a little higher as we go straight in and we just wear ourselves out, because the U.S. is the only game in town for soybeans. And when we look at the fact that China is, the rumoring this week was that they were going to cancel corn sales back to us. They have 1.6 million metric tons to take yet. Well, the market didn't skip a beat. And what market set the new highs? September.
Sue, I got to move on here. We got to talk livestock real quick. What do you see in the cattle market going forward?
Well, I think the cattle market is got some tough times to go ahead. We'll get some bounces, but this heat has really worked over demand. Now the rain's coming up and cooling on the East Coast is going to be a godsend here for a little bit. But to be honest with you, the drop in the feeder market's going to continue, I think. I fear, we've had wave 4 counts on the downside, but rallies are going to be met with selling. And we're going to continue to see a liquidation of cows coming off of pastures and moving into the packing houses, and then the calves going to auctions. Lightweight calves will have a home easily. The heavier weight ones, because they're going to demand corn feeding, probably will be taking a drop in price.
All right. Sue, can we talk hogs for just a sec?
Yes.
All right.
The hog market, first off, the hogs, of course, appear to be holding up a little bit better today. But the problem here again is sort of going to follow in the footsteps of the cattle producer, because hog producers are losing at least $25 a head. And so we're going to see the hog producer, who was at first attempting to maybe expand, they're going to probably go into some liquidation. I think you'll see sows liquidated.
Perfect. Thank you, Sue. We'll get more into detail after the show on our website. That wraps up this edition of Market to Market. But if you'd like more information from Sue on where these high-flying markets may be headed, visit the Market Plus page at our website. You'll find expanded market analysis, audio podcasts, and streaming video of our program, as well as links to our Twitter feed and Facebook account, all free, at the Market to Market website. And speaking of social media, I'm sort of the new kid on the block here at Market to Market, and I'm really excited about getting to know viewers better. So visit any of our sites and share your comments on Market to Market. Be sure to join us again next week when we'll continue to examine the drought's impact on commodity prices. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a good week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by Pioneer Hybrid, which supports efforts to help families pass their farms into the hands of the next generation. Pioneer, science with service, delivering success.